Have you ever wanted to self-publish your own book, but you have no idea where to begin? Do you know you have a book in you, but the publishing aspect, where does it go? How does it actually become a book? How do I get it in the hands of the people who need it? If all of that stuff intimidates you, you're going to want to listen to this conversation today. Today on the Possibility Mom Live, I'm welcoming Kate Franz from Thy Olive Tree to talk about her brand new Fiat Self Publishing Academy. It's going to be a good time. There are a few things that I get asked about frequently, and I will tell you. So one of them is, how do you do life with 9 kids? Another question is, how did you guys get from Canada to the United States, like legally? I get that question in my DMs like all the time. I get questions all the time about mental illness and marriage and how do you do that? And then I would say the next most often asked question that I get is, how do I write a book? How do I publish a book? Do you put a book on Amazon? Like on and on and on. All things book related. How do you make money from a book? Is it possible to make money from a book? So I love talking about the book experience. I had a very, I would say, positive book experience, but my writing a book experience, The Possibility Mom, was very topsy-turvy, meaning I had to be kind of talked into writing a book. I didn't know that I could write a book at the time in my career when I wrote it. I had many perceptions about what you had to have ready to write a book. And I was very pleasantly surprised, and I think you will too, what is possible today at time of recording, like right here, right now, how possible it is for you to get a book out in the world. And you can do it like now, like really like now. So excited to bring to the Possibility Mom Live, Kate Franz from Thy Olive Tree. Kate, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so happy that we can do this at 9 a.m. in the morning. Today's a special recording day for this podcast. Kate, for anyone who might not know who you are, will you just introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kate Franz. I am a convert to Catholicism, and I'm a wife. I'm a mother to 3 children and a business owner of Thy Olive Tree, and now the Fiat Self Publishing Academy. I live in Michigan, so I'm closer to you now, Lisa.
Oh my gosh, I should you could come and touch. We can touch arms over the community. Yeah. I have so many friends who have done like the Michigan, what's the state? Windsor? Is it Windsor? No. Anyway, whatever's right there, like where they
very close. Yeah.
Yeah, they just like up and down, up and down. Okay, wait. I forgot this whole part of your story that you are a convert. So can you give us the 2-minute version of that story?
Sure. So I married my husband in 2011 in the Catholic Church, but I was not Catholic. I identified as Christian, non-denominational. When my husband and I met, I thought, okay, cool. Like, we're both Christian. I didn't really think much of it. And we were married in the Catholic Church. And then after that, I was never going to convert to Catholicism just because he was Catholic. I was very stubborn. And long story short, but I think learning about him being Catholic and more about the Catholic faith actually made me take several steps back from Christianity altogether. It was like, whoa, wait, why am I even Christian? Like, what do I believe? Is God real? And so I went on this several-year journey where I was reading lots of books. My husband and I were having tons of conversations. I was, watching videos and just trying to figure out, is God real? And then after that, like, well, okay, which religion do I think it has the truth? And I mean, on a road trip, my husband and I listened to a world religion podcast for like 12 hours. And then I made it to where I was like, there is something about this person, Jesus, and that led me back to Christianity. And then the leap from, Christianity to specifically Catholicism was actually the easiest for me because of apostolic succession and Peter being the first pope. That made sense. So then we started attending an RCIA class, and it was a beautiful experience. And that led me into the church.
And when did you enter the church? You're like a fairly new Catholic.
It was 2016.
Oh my word. All right. We have to talk about that. I feel like I have a convert podcast in me. Like I love talking about conversion stories because my brain has so many questions. Like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Well, welcome home. I love it so much. And then tell us the story of how you started Thy Olive Tree, and where does the name Thy Olive Tree come from?
Yeah. So after I converted, my husband and I, we had our first child in 2018. And, around that time, I was looking for a Catholic baby memory book, something where I could record all of the, baby's first tooth, baby's first step, all of that. And what I was finding, I couldn't find a lot that had the sacraments in it. I was like, where do I put baptism? Where do I put these pivotal moments in her life? And I thought, I could design something. At the time, I have a master's in public health. So I was working for a nonprofit. And I had the design skills. I had learned them in high school, but I had never really used them professionally. And I thought, I'll just design a book for her. And after I did that, I thought, wow, I think other families could benefit from this. And I showed it to other people and decided I'm gonna start a business. I'm gonna start selling these books. And then I'll be honest, I had no idea where that was going. It was just this one book. And I actually talk about this in my academy where, it's really good to have a focus for your business and an understanding of where you want to go. Because in that moment I was like, oh, I'll do a whole line of baby products, but that's not where God was actually calling me. But that's the first book. And then from there, I started self-publishing other books. I have a rosary book, a Lectio Divina journal, and really fell into this love for self-publishing. But Thy Olive Tree was created, that name specifically, because I wanted something meaningful. I wanted to tie it into my conversion story and prayer. And around the time I converted, I started praying the rosary for the first time. And, I really started to enjoy it. But it's so, when you pray the rosary, like your mind wanders. It's hard to always meditate on the mystery. But there's this one experience in particular where I was praying the rosary and it was Jesus's agony in the garden. And I could so vividly picture while I was praying Jesus in the garden. And it was like, this is not an image of my mind. Like God gave me this image. I don't know how else to explain it. And a lot of times, when you see pictures of Jesus in the garden, he's looking down, but it was like he was looking at me, like I am there with you in this garden and this journey in life. Like I'm with you. And it was such a powerful experience, and consolation in prayer, which we know doesn't happen all the time. And the Garden of Gethsemane is known for its ancient olive trees. And that's how I thought, maybe I should incorporate something with these olive trees into my business. And I had verbalized it to my husband on the way to Mass. And then the very first, it was the gospel reading. The first line talked about the Mount of Olives. And I just thought, okay, I think that's a sign or an affirmation.
Oh my word. I love it so much. Just real quick, the Garden of Gethsemane is a very personal so when I became a mindset coach in a Catholic container, right? So my mindset coach training is very Catholic. One of the exercises that our coaches had us do to process emotion. So a lot of times when a business owner is overwhelmed in their business and they don't want to take action, or a mom is feeling disappointed or lost or hurt, there's an emotion that obviously causes that is an emotion. Disappointment is an emotion, right? But a lot of times trouble is caused resentment. Like I'm talking about not so nice fruit, so to speak, of these negative emotions are caused. So like resentment towards their spouses or resentment towards their businesses or inactivity in general, like all that kind of stuff. But to process that emotion is what actually is like one of the steps towards like actual movement. So you actually want to launch something, we have to actually process that emotion. You actually want to change something in your marriage, we really got to process that emotion. Anyway, one of the exercises our coaches taught us was to find places in the Bible where Jesus had that same emotion. Because again,
Mm.
Jesus was fully God, but also fully human.
Yeah.
Such an interesting paradox. And so I struggle sometimes with despair. I can go so full despair, like expert level despair. My coaches were like, find where Jesus was sad
Mm.
in the Bible and the Garden of Gethsemane. Whew, like I have spent so much time at that olive tree also. Uh,
Oh.
and the whole idea is that like we don't fear the emotion. Like
Mm.
felt the sorrow. He felt that like abandonment. He says it in the Bible. Why have you forsaken me? Anyway, so just like that, the Garden of Gethsemane is like, I have spent a lot of visual time like in my head, in my heart, in that garden too. So I find that so interesting. And of course, that's how you and I got connected. We got connected over your baby keepsake book
Yeah.
years ago. And I just love what you have created and how that olive tree has evolved. Alrighty, so let's get into self-publishing because as I
Mhm.
said at the top of this podcast, I had a very interesting experience with my book. I chose to go the hybrid publishing option, which you partner with a publisher who is able to distribute your book for you in the major publications or the major places where perhaps a more traditional publisher would help you, but you retain all the rights to your book. So for me at that time, it was a really helpful thing. But what I've come to observe today is self-publishing like is like I have a self-published book in me soon, I'm sure. Like I
Mhm.
just not yet done it, but I just
You
think
got it.
interesting um possibility, especially for a mom who is at home and
Mhm.
perhaps wants to just see what could happen. I think self-publishing is such a great option. Okay, so why don't we begin, Kate, by just describing the differences between, just very briefly, like
Yeah.
traditional publishing,
Yes.
hybrid publishing, and self-publishing. So why don't we start with traditional? Can you just give us a very quick uh, summary of what is traditional publishing?
Yeah, absolutely. So traditional publishing is, the mainstream publishing, what most of you probably think of when your book is picked up by a big publishing house, or we're talking about Catholic publishing, a Catholic publishing house. With that process, you are going to write a manuscript. Each publishing house is going to have very specific requirements for what they want in that manuscript. Sometimes writing a manuscript can feel like writing, or rather, a proposal that you're sending to the publisher. It could feel like you are writing a book because they're going to ask you for a lot of information in that proposal that you're submitting to them. So you would apply, and then if accepted, I say that because when you go the traditional publishing route, you are applying. So you can decide to go that route, but you have to apply. If your book is picked up, then when you go the traditional route, the publisher is financing that book. So your royalty on that is going to obviously be smaller because you're not paying to publish that book. So oftentimes a traditional publisher, they're going to offer you an advance on that book. And then if the book sells enough to pay out that advance, then royalties kick in.
Mhm.
And that will be anywhere between maybe 7.5 to 15% on the book. Now, most books don't pay off the advance, and so a lot of times those royalties never really kick in. It's just kind of the nature of how things work. But when you go the traditional route, you're getting something up front, and the publisher is covering the cost of the book.
So traditional publishing also, you get an advance, which is wonderful financially, obviously for the author. But they are oftentimes very stringent and picky. So, like,
Yes.
I had a friend of mine, dear colleague of mine, working at a publishing house. She tells this story all the time, like stacks and stacks and stacks of manuscripts delivered, and her acquisition editor would like literally just be like toss, toss, like literal physical
Yeah.
toss. Because a traditional publisher also wants to make money. So they
Right.
care that your audience, that you have an audience. They care about the profitability of the book, of course, because they're in business to do that. So traditional publishing, you often have to write a manuscript. It's dependent a little bit on your audience. We're making some broad generalizations here, but
Yeah.
these are pretty accurate, I would say. You get an advance and you will get royalties. It varies. Advances vary from what I've learned now from
Yes.
friends and colleagues. Advances will vary. Sometimes it can be in the high 10 to 6 figures, but a lot of times it's not. Again, these are big houses typically. So we're talking like Penguin, Random House, Simon and Schuster, like big houses where to actually even get in, your book may be in a stack very, very high of
Mhm.
manuscripts that are being considered. Okay, so that is traditional publishing, the one that most people, I think. Oh, and let's talk about timeline real quick.
Yeah.
Actually, this I don't know factually. I worked on the back end of the Property Brothers book, Dream Home.
Mhm.
And I was working on their team, and I want to say that turnaround time, like we were working on that book from conception of like contract signed to actual publication day. I want to say that was easily a year, like that, and that was a year. That was a book with a high production, like meaning we were taking
Okay.
pictures, like so that was a high production project. Uh,
Mhm.
do you know the timeline typically for traditional publishing?
You know, I have not gone the traditional publishing route, but I have heard even like up to 18 months. And depending on, like I've heard about launch dates getting pushed back because, the book kind of ends up in a queue. And so all these milestones and steps obviously have to happen before the book
Right,
can
right.
launch. But yes, it is typically a much longer timeline
Mhm.
than if you do it yourself.
Oh, and then the final thing that is very important is you typically, but I think almost always, you do not retain the rights to your book. So, meaning the publisher owns it. And if you want to do something else with the content, you have to get written permission, all that kind of thing. So I'm sure there's some variability in that, like how much of the content you own. But from what I understand, in traditional publishing, you uh, offer the rights, or the rights are given to
You
you.
license them to the publisher to use.
That's a very important part to know.
Mhm.
Okay.
The other thing about,
Go ahead.
yeah, about traditional publishing, is that, and I think this would be important for anyone who is wanting to write a children's book who's listening. A lot of times people think, oh, I'm going to write my children's book and I'm going to get it all illustrated and then I'm going to submit it to the publisher, or I'm going to get to pick my illustrator. But that's typically not how it works. Usually you would submit your manuscript and then the publisher is going to assign an illustrator to that book.
Mm,
So just something to think about. For me, when I created My Catholic Keepsake, it's a very visual book.
mhm.
And so I briefly researched traditional publishing and I just thought, I don't think this is the right fit. First, I have no platform whatsoever. I'm not on social media. So I think that might have been a strike against me. And then, my book is so visual. I want to be the one designing it and
Mhm,
creating it and having all creative control over it.
mhm, mhm.
And so I just didn't know if it would be a good fit for
That's a
traditional.
really important thing to note as well. When you go the traditional route, your publisher has a really big say. So just really quick, when I was working on the Property Brothers book, there was so much back and forth with the publisher. Like I'm talking every page, every like image, every uh, just everything about the book. There was input from the publisher. We should also mention some of the really cool aspects like that come with working a traditional publisher. Again, not all are created equal, but a lot of times, like Penguin, Random House, Simon Schuster, like these big houses, they come with a really beefy PR team. So, what is really fun sometimes about working with a more traditional publisher is that they want the book to sell because
Yes.
that's what they want. And so they will work hard to get you appearances on daytime talk shows, to get you on radio shows. One of my dear friends is it works in PR for Ignatius Press, a
Mm.
Catholic publishing house, and her job is to book her authors on the Catholic radios on Sirius XM, et cetera, et cetera. So that is one really cool asset that comes with traditional publishing. Okay, let's talk about
Yeah.
hybrid. I'll just really quickly talk about hybrid. It's the route I went, and to be honest, I did no research. Like it just an opportunity was presented to me
Okay.
where I was at a dinner and a dear friend had coordinated this dinner, and it was at the home of the acquisitions editor for a hybrid publishing house called um, Morgan James. And we had this dinner, and I remember just being like, I was very pregnant with one baby, I have no idea which one. I was very pregnant, and I just was like, this is the last thing I'm doing. And then I'm like out. Like I'm like maternity leave. I'm
Okay.
physically and mentally out. So we did this event. I go home to Toronto, and she called me like within a couple days. And she was like, Lisa, like, I know you said at the dinner, like, you have no interest in writing a book, yada, yada, yada. But she was like, the time for your book is now. There and again, we have to remember like the landscape of things and how cool it makes doing business today. Like there was 10 years ago, even social media was just becoming what it is today. Like now it is truly possible for those who want to, for those who feel called to pick up their phone and sell. Like
Mhm.
it is just a possibility. We had business before the internet. People looked up businesses in the yellow pages. People
Yeah.
looked up businesses. They still do this in the back of the church bulletin. Like that still happens. But today it is just so exciting and invigorating that you truly can pick up your phone and you can sell from the comfort of your home. So we were kind of like things were getting exciting in terms of all the things. Like I think Instagram had just started when my book or was getting like its
Okay.
legs really, really like exploding. And so she was like, the time for your book is now. Moms are looking for this kind of message.
Mm.
She was talking about, her own people in her own life that she was observing. And just she really convinced me that the time for my book was now. But I was like, Karen, like, I have an audience, but like it's not a big one. Like I thought a book was what you did when you like won the Nobel Prize. Like in
Mhm.
my head, a book was positioned as this thing you did when you were famous or you had accomplished something. And she was like, no, a book can be the thing. Like a book can be your launch pad to the Nobel Prize. If that's like her point was you can use a book to build your audience. And that's what sold me on writing the book.
Mm.
So I went the hybrid route really quickly. A hybrid route brings the distribution of traditional publishing. So that's one thing that we didn't really talk about in traditional. Distribute the book for you. So meaning you want to get in Target, you want to get in Chapters Indigo up here in Canada, you want to get in like major bookstores. They want to sell your book as much as possible. So they're
Mhm.
in all of the mainstream places, right? What I really liked about my publisher was they do all that. They had or have a small sort of PR house as well. So there was some kind of like training, I guess. Not so much like they weren't so much pitching me places, but they were definitely offering me feedback and support in that capacity. But what was most attractive to me about hybrid publishing was that I retained the rights exclusively to the book. And that was just so appealing because I create so many digital courses, I create so many things with my content. And so I really, really like that idea. You do not get an advance with hybrid, at least in my sort of my perception of the entire industry of hybrid. You might get a small advance, like we're talking a couple $100, maybe a couple thousand if you're lucky, but we're not talking advances in the tens of thousands when you go a hybrid route. And oftentimes you actually are paying upfront fees. So there's actually an investment that you are making to get your book off the ground. But you do retain a little bit of creative control. Like I, at the end of the day, with my hybrid published book, I retained creative control. If I didn't like the font that they used, if they didn't like the
Mhm.
whatever. But what was really great was that they really guided me through that whole graphic design aspect as well, like the type, the spacing, the layout of the book in general. They were very picky about because they obviously have so much experience with readability in a book and all the things. So that was really cool. I'm trying to think of any. Can you think of anything I've missed that is like a benefit or a drawback to hybrid publishing?
Yeah. So, oh gosh, I have so many thoughts right now. The first is just when you mentioned distribution with traditional publishing, just to revisit that briefly for those who don't quite understand what distribution is, because this is a really big thing, and it took me a while to figure out when I first started publishing. Distribution is getting your book into retail stores. And that can be very difficult to do as a self-publisher because the stores often want to open up. They don't want to open up a million different accounts with all these different authors. They want to be able to open up just a few accounts and get all the books that they want. And so when you unlock distribution, that's definitely a perk to traditional publishing. With hybrid publishing, you gave a nice overview. What I always caution people with hybrid publishing is that these days, unfortunately, a lot of publishing houses will claim that they're hybrid, but there's actually a list of 10 things that
Mhm.
make you a hybrid publisher. Like these are criteria that you have to meet. The list is on, it's the Independent Book Publisher Association's website, and they've developed this wonderful criteria. And some of those things are that you actually have to apply and they have to vet your manuscript.
Mm,
So if you are, a hybrid publisher should not just be taking everyone.
mhm.
They should be going through a very similar vetting process that a traditional publisher does. So that's one example. They should have a sales record. They should have distribution. And it shouldn't just be, there's a difference between what I would consider more of like fulfillment, like, oh yeah, we have distribution, we can get you into all these stores. Okay, but like, do you have a sales force behind that? Are you going to be actively calling on those stores? So that's a little bit of a difference there. So I always caution people with hybrid publishing just to make sure that if who you're thinking about working with says that they're a hybrid publisher, pull up that list and really vet them. Make sure that they are doing all of those things, because unfortunately, I see people fall prey to a lot of very large self-publishing packages that promise to do it all,
Yeah,
and you don't end up getting a good return on investment.
that's
But
such a feedback.
for hybrid publishing, I think that those who I recommend hybrid publishing are, if you don't feel like you have the time to learn all the ins and outs of self-publishing on your own, because it's a lot, like you have to invest that time. That could be a good reason to choose hybrid publishing.
Right.
If you don't have the time to learn how to self-publish, it takes a lot. It takes time.
Yeah.
If you are maybe only working on one book and you're like, I'm not going to be doing this as a career. I, don't need to invest in necessarily learning how to do it because I'm only doing one book.
Right.
Um, and I would say if you also have like you, that desire and passion to build a business and you feel confident that you will get a good return on investment off of that book. Because many hybrid publishing packages are very expensive, like
Yeah, we're talking like
thousands
$20.
of dollars, like you are paying. And so I caution anyone from to do that if you don't have a solid business plan in mind. Like, this is how I'm going to recoup that. And then also to really look at the caliber of books that are coming off of that press.
That's a very important one.
Are bestsellers coming off that list? Is the cover design strong? If you don't know, ask someone. Because unfortunately, like I see this with traditional hybrid, small presses, the books that are coming off the press, the covers, they're not very strong. And the cover will make or break your success. And so you don't want to be paying someone to publish a book for you and then not have the caliber of that book
Yeah.
be strong.
one of the things that I learned from the Property Brothers book that I worked on was how important the cover is.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. We're going to talk about self-publishing in just a minute,
Yeah.
but I here's my cover. I love my covers.
Yes, you have a very good cover.
Love it so much. And this truthfully, it did go with a few, like it did go through a few iterations, but not too many. Like we really kind of, we only played with the one image. So it's this image of me sitting on the couch. We only played with one type face. Like it wasn't like we iterated the possibility mom like many, many times.
Okay.
I don't even think at you know what? No, 100%. I did not have a logo for the possibility mom. So they created it for me.
Okay.
Like amazing because then I got to use it like forever. But like, yeah, it was just like it was they were very picky. It was like we want one image of you looking really like accessible, inviting. Okay. So this didn't go through too many iterations.
Okay.
We never tried like another image of me or anything like that. And similarly, the Property Brothers book, I don't have a copy of theirs real quick just for reference, but it's the two of them dream home. Okay. Same thing. We didn't try like 5 different photos of them. We didn't try different typefaces. It was all pretty similar, but oh my word. It was like, we need to Photoshop that shadow of Jonathan's hand on Drew's shoulder. Oh, there's a little wrinkle on Drew's vest. We need to Photoshop that out. Oh, the kerning between the letters of Dream Home. Like it was that they were so specific about teeny tiny details. And one of the things that I'll remember, this is not divulging anything to whatever, like, but I will never forget this sentence from the publisher. I don't remember the specific thing we were debating, but I was involved in an email string about the cover, and there was something he really didn't like, and he was like, if we don't fix this, it's going to look like a cover of books that end up in the $1 bin.
Mm.
And I was like, like I was like, the Property Brothers book can't be in the $1 bin. Like I need to fix that immediately. But that's how visceral his reaction was. And again, I can't remember exactly. It was probably like something to do with color. Like again, it was the cover of their book is them, but just the two of them smiling and a little bit of text. Very similar to my book. Like nothing that elaborate. But he was so specific. So that's where I really got like quite an education of like the what the cover of your book, because it really is like they're going to judge your book very quickly by the cover. So anyway, I find this fascinating. Okay, let's get to self-publishing. So what is self-publishing? And obviously you are biased. As am I a little bit. I'm definitely, if you haven't picked up on the bias in this conversation, I respect and love traditional publishing. And that is, I will very likely go a traditional publishing route as well in my future because of all the benefits that we've talked about. But I think there is so much potential in a self-published book. So describe it. What is self-publishing?
Yeah. So self-publishing is when you finance your book. And the other options we've talked about, traditional publishers finance your book, hybrid, it's shared. Self-publishing, you are financing your book. And I love what you said, Lisa, about, having bias. Obviously, I'm on here to talk about self-publishing, but I really feel like the best book is one that gets out in the world, no matter what way that happens. And so I'm not here to convince anyone to come work with me over traditional publishing. Like if that's the route that works for you, then go for it. Because there are pros and cons to every method of publishing. So I just want to get that out there. But so when you self-publish, you are essentially becoming the creative director for your book. You are becoming the CEO. You are becoming the project manager. You are taking on everything that a traditional publisher would do. Now there's another type of publishing, which we haven't really talked about, which is sometimes called vanity publishing, or you'll see like self-publishing companies. And this is not hybrid publishing. This is different. So I just want to clarify this for anyone, that isn't quite sure how to go about it. There are companies that will offer a package, and they'll say, we'll publish your entire book. We'll do everything for you. And it'll be called like a self-publishing company, or, self-publishing, assisted self-publishing. And that's not what I'm going to be training authors in my academy to utilize. Those packages are unlike hybrid. When you go that route, they usually aren't going to vet a manuscript. They're just going to say, okay, you want to pay us to publish your book, we'll do it for you. And they'll offer a package. And that package will include editing, design, and all of those things. And so if you want someone to handle that whole process for you, you can pay someone to do it. And obviously, there's going to be an upcharge because you're paying someone to take that on for you. What I want to train authors to do is to manage that process on their own. And when you do that, you get to specifically pick and choose everyone that you work with.
Right.
So if you go through a company, they're going to assign your editor, your book cover designer. You're losing that control, and you're paying them. And so what I want, to teach authors how to do is to retain that control and then pick and choose who you work with. So you can say, I want that cover designer and that editor, and I'm going to work with this printer. And you make all those decisions on your own, and then your end product is exactly, it is your baby. Like this is what you have created. And so when you self-publish, it comes with a lot of responsibility because you are managing all of that. But it's through the academy, through a course I'm building, I'm going to teach authors how to do that. And it's not as challenging as you might think. Like if you take it step by step, it is a manageable process, and there are ways to do it. Like you said on the beginning of this podcast, where it is easier now than it's been to self-publish a book and to get your book out in the world.
Okay, I have to highlight a couple things. So I very likely have a traditional published book in me as well, but I 100% have a self-published book in me. And here are all the reasons why I love self-publishing. Number one, you can test your idea. I love that somebody could be like, I want to write a book about homeschooling from their lived experience. Okay, a mom could be like, I've learned a thing or two about homeschooling that I think I could share with people. From their lived experience, they could be like, here's the ultimate homeschooling schedule, and they could create a book around it. They could do it with little pressure, I'm going to say. So meaning there's nobody asking them for a deadline. Yeah. There's nobody sort of on their case, which obviously can be a challenge as well, but they can do it with little pressure. And then they can kind of get it out there and just be like, is this even worth it? They can get feedback and then quickly change the contents of their book. That is what I think is, if I wanted to change something in this book, it's possible, but I have to pay for an iteration to be created. They have to, obviously it's they lay it out and whatever. I have to pay for sort of this there's what's the name? ISBN? There's a number. Yeah. ISBN. You get a number on a book. Every book has an ISBN number. So I have to pay for a new ISBN number to be created, and so on and so forth. Whereas when you have a book at home, and let's say you write it, you send it out to your fellow homeschool mom friends, and you notice people are confused about one chapter or one aspect. When you self-publish, you can go to your computer, or you can go to whoever you hired to lay out your book and be like, hey, we need to clarify this. Can you change page 79 to this copy? You can do that. And then the book that is newly published on Kindle or wherever is changed really quickly. So and again, testing something can just be extremely advantageous. So that's one of the reasons why I love self-publishing. Second reason, real quick, and then I want to hear some of your reasons why you love self-publishing, is that while, again, perhaps it sounds glamorous, you can just write this in your spare time, it's going to take you a lot of work. Listen to me really clearly. Writing a book was like writing my, at the time, 7th child. I remember just, I am giving birth to my 7th child. No, my 8th child. I had 2 babies in the time writing The Possibility Mom. Anyway,
Mhm.
but just while it is a tremendous amount of work, what I love about self-publishing is you can truly do this from the comfort of your home amidst the many responsibilities that you have. So when you're making an investment with a hybrid or with a traditional publisher, although traditional they're paying you, but whatever, like it's money that could be for a family. Either they don't have it or it's a little bit risky, or, so on and so forth. When I did my book, we had amassed, I was earning through my interior design business. We had recently sold our home, so we knew we wanted to use some of those earnings towards a book, et cetera, et cetera. We had a lump of money in which to invest in my book and its promotion. But for a lot of people out there, this is maybe their very first book. They don't have an audience currently. If that is you, self-publishing can be a fairly low risk and low, again, not low time, but like you can do it with a lot of flexibility of like all the things going on in your life happening. You can fit a book in and fit it in truly over time. So I just think there's so much potential in self-publishing. Why do you love self-publishing, Kate?
Yes, you've hit on a few of those things. For me, I can create. So my rosary book, let me show you this. When I came up with this book here, well, this is the second one in the series, but a painted rosary book. From the time I had the idea to when it was printed and in people's hands was 6 months.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That is a very, very short timeline. And, I'm not saying, so you never want to rush it. Like just because you're self-publishing doesn't mean like, oh, I can just produce something really quickly and it's fine. Like, no, you still want to make sure that this is a very polished book, like ready to bring to market. But you can usually do that on your own timeline, whether that is an expedited 6 months or like you said, I have a lot going on right now. I'm going to do this as I have time. And maybe that takes 2 years, but I'm doing it on my time, on my schedule. And I think that there is a lot of flexibility in that, into managing your own timeline. I've touched on the creative control part. Like for me, that was the biggest thing, especially since all of my books are very visual. Like I needed to have creative control over every aspect of the book. The other thing, and you touched on this briefly earlier, but I'm going to elaborate, is the rights. So when you self-publish, like you have the rights to that book, and then you can license that if you wish later on. And so what I mean by that is maybe you decide I'm selling this book in the US, but I want to license my book to someone to sell just in Spanish in Mexico. Like you can do that. And so you have this flexibility like further down the road to play around with the rights of your book and license it in a way that makes sense for you. That might not be something that you're doing initially, but just something to kind of think of down the road. That's one of the things that you get to have a little more control over when you have all the rights to your book. You haven't licensed it.
I really want to encourage anybody listening, and you teach this inside of your academy. The how. Whenever an idea is in your heart, it can be so quick to go to the how. Oh, I don't know how to do it. That's so overwhelming. I don't know how to write. I'm not a writer. How on earth? I don't like talking about myself. How am I going to promote all the things? But like, if you are listening to this and you're like, I know I have a book in me. What I want to, again, this is what I encourage all of my motherhood and my business coaching clients. I'm always like, just like put the how aside, because the how is so figure outable. There is somebody else ahead of you on the journey who has already figured that out. So just put the how aside for a moment and instead look at the why. Why can your book change the world? Why could your book help somebody else's life? Why could your book bring somebody closer to Jesus? Why could your book help somebody choose life? Why could your book I could go on and on and on and on. Improve a marriage, improve a parenting relationship, like on and on and on and on and on. The Possibility Mom was written in 2018, I want to say. Maybe I think that was my publication. Maybe 19. I honestly can't remember. But I have received so many notes, so many
Mhm.
letters. Like we're talking, this is a 5-year-old book now, 19, 20, 21, 22, like almost 5-year-old book. And I continue to receive messages. I continue to every single day build my email list because every single day I get somebody coming into my email list because of my book. Every single day, my book has the capability. I love what you just said a minute ago. The best book is one
Mhm.
that's out in the world. Every single day, there is somebody who is able to touch my book and gain something from it
Yes.
because I focused on the why and not the how. And that's the encouragement I really want to give people. Focus on how your book will help people, why your book could change someone's life, and the how, leave it to people like Kate and Lisa. So, Kate, tell us about your brand new Fiat Self Publishing Academy.
Yes, that was great, Lisa. I mean, that's the academy is going to teach you the how. So once you feel like, okay, God is calling me to write this story, He's placed this book on my heart. And if you discern that, okay, self-publishing, I think is the route that I want to go, then the academy is here to help you. The Fiat Self Publishing Academy it has a course where I'm going to share all my secrets on everything I've learned over the years about self publishing. I've developed a model where it's actually it's in the shape of, if you go to my homepage, Lisa, if you click admissions on the top, I think
Mm-hmm.
it'll take you there. You have to scroll down to the bottom, but there's a picture of the monstrance, and I have in the center core areas that we're going to discuss. Things like discernment. So, am I doing God's will? Is this the book that God wants me to write? Sanctity. Is this book helping me to grow closer to God? Is this business? Is this project sanctifying? Business. I think that is the area. As writers, we're thinking about the craft of writing. But the academy is really focusing on the business and the logistics of self-publishing. So the how, just like you said, Lisa. When we talk about business responsibility, how can we make sure that we are getting this book out into the world responsibly, and all those business steps that come in play. And then innovation, creativity. This is so important to be thinking about. What is the unique angle that my book is taking? Who am I serving with this book? So those are core areas that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to move into what I would say are the more like traditional areas of self-publishing that kind of circle around this piece. So, you're going to start with the actual creating part, and then you're going to go into editing. You're going to go into review. And this one here, the review part, is something that you're not going to find in secular self-publishing courses, because I'm going to be talking about especially if your book is Catholic in nature, and if it's speaking on faith and morals, what that looks like in terms of, being in line with Catholic Church teaching, and if you need to seek an imprimatur theological review. So that's a piece that is going to be, specific to this course. And then we go into book design, which is, what we talked about. People judge books by their covers. And so this is so important. And then we're going to get into the actual printing and publishing, like how do you actually get that book out there, and then marketing and selling.
I love
So all those things will be covered in the course. But then on top of that, we have 16 instructors, you,
it.
Lisa, being one of them.
Pause you because when I looked at this instructor page, and I'm so honored to be one of your instructors, I really focus on how do you make money. And spoiler alert, in my humble opinion, you do not make money. You don't make your most of your money from the actual physical book. I believe that you make money on all the things that you have available after someone has read your book. That is my absolute bias, and just I love helping people build businesses off of a book. But I looked at your instructors. First of all, I am friendly with basically everybody on this page, which is so much fun. You have gathered some heavy hitters in the industry. Greg Johnson, I've never met, but the little Catholic box heard so much about. Henry Katarna, of course, he's become like, I adore Henry Katarna.
He's great, yeah.
Kate Sell, oh my word, on public relations and marketing. Kate Sell is like, I don't know how to describe Kate Sell. Kate Sell is like, I'm trying to think of like a secular reference. She's like, okay, this is a really bold reference, and I mean this in the best way. Like, she's like Oprah. Like, everybody knows Kate Sell. She knows everybody, and she operates from this, like, I want to be Kate Sell when I grow up. Like, she operates from this place of incredible integrity. She always looks and smells good. I know that's funny, but every time I have ever visually seen this woman, I am like, you are like, she's like a princess, like Princess of Monaco. You know what I mean? Anyway, if you've had any interactions with Kate Sell, I'm sure you understand what I mean. You've got people in law, in crowdfunding, in Instagram growth. I love that you have Christine Lacayo.
Mhm.
I met Christine at the Scent Summit in Houston last
Oh,
year. Anyway, you have just like amassed a really fun group of people, and I'm so excited to be one of the instructors on business and mindset coaching. I want to really quickly pause. We've been talking so much, and I love it, but I really do quickly want to talk about mindset and writing a book, because
yeah.
this is the part that I wish, if I could do my whole book experience over again, I could kind of revisit. I let
Mm.
3 deadlines come and go. And these 3 deadlines, like I said, I had 2 babies, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I was pregnant with whoever the first time, and then I for sure had another baby. And I'm almost positive I had Phoebe. Like, if I can, like, track it all, I'm pretty sure I had Phoebe like before the book got published. So that's my actual 7th child. So then the book would be like birthing my 8th
Eighth
child.
child, yeah.
Anyway, not to be mistaken with my actual 8th child, Colleen. But anyway, my point is just, I let 3 things come and go, and I can tell you exactly why. I've told this story before. I was petrified of criticism.
Mm.
Petrified. And so I, of course, didn't want to subject myself to criticism. So why would I finish the book? And I just, like, mindset coaching can make your life so much easier. And when you are writing a book, especially when it is something that is a little bit more memoir based, or that is a little bit more just personal, you are, of course, going to have to sift through a lot of stuff, right? Even if
Mhm.
you're writing like a nonfiction book, or sorry, excuse me, a fiction book. Like, even if you're writing fiction, there can be a whole bunch of reasons why your brain would want to protect you. But particularly if you are going the route of memoir, or like anything kind of, emotional to you, just the mindset piece is so important. I just have to like pause and really let people hear how important it is to protect your mind and work on your mind when you run a business, when you open yourself up to criticism, because that it can really make or break your business. So just obviously, again, bias. It's so important. Kate, what are you most excited about with the Fiat Self-Publishing Academy?
Mm. We have this amazing platform. It's a peer-to-peer platform, and it's on this. It's called Heartbeat.chat, and so we're not going to be on Facebook. We're going to be on this, our own platform. And I mean, that's the company name, Heartbeat.chat. That's the platform. I'm calling it the sacred heartbeat of our community. Because it's going to have spaces where you can talk about all those different areas related to self-publishing. It allows you to match up with other authors. So once a month, if you want, you can be put in a group where you can meet, 2 to 3 authors, hold each other accountable, get to know one another. That's the thing that I find is usually missing in Facebook groups is, you're in this large group, and then you're like, but I want to make connections with people. I want to find out, like, what are other people working on, and how do I like hold this person accountable? And so that's the piece, that community aspect, that I'm really excited for. Instructors will be in there too. And so, that it's just going to be this great mix of people. And I'm just so excited to see, that that collaboration that happens. I'm also building directories where authors will be able to find book cover designers, editors, illustrators, printers to help them work on their books.
Mhm.
And so if you look at everything that's being offered, I was very deliberate about what I'm offering to Academy members because, I can do a course and then the course can tell you, well, you need a great cover. But if I don't give you a list of people that can help you, then where does that leave you? And so, if you have questions after the course, well, now we have these instructors that are giving live events. So that is one thing I haven't talked about is that almost every week we're going to have a live event where instructors and guest speakers are going to be talking about specific topics. So Lisa, I'm so excited for when you end up speaking about mindset coaching because I think authors in the Academy are going to learn so much from you about mindset coaching and business, when it comes to your book. And so these are things that we'll be able to do deep dives in when we do live interviews, workshops with the instructors in the Academy.
I think I'm just so glad you did this because this is the kind of thing that I wish I had many years ago at the beginning of my book journey. And I particularly love that you're doing this in a very authentically Catholic container because as so many of us been having this conversation over the last, I would say like year or so, this conversation globally, so to speak, on the internet of building a Catholic economy. I would say Rika Turner kind of really started it off. I've heard so much about it, and many other people have talked about building a Catholic economy. I just to me, I love supporting a small business where it's like their goal is to bring a spouse home. Their goal is to be more flexible and all, and be more available to their kids, maybe leave a corporate job if they feel called to in order to be more home. And so I just love that you are giving people the opportunity not only to build their own business and their own platform, but you're also giving people the opportunity, like kind of on a silver platter in this membership, the opportunity to support other businesses, other coaches,
Yes.
and again, from a Catholic container, again, furthering this whole concept of the Catholic economy. Alrighty, the link to join through my affiliate link is below. And wherever you're listening to this or watching this, it's below in the show notes. And I really want to encourage people to take advantage of the founding member pricing. I just wrapped my founding member launch for my academies, and I can just tell you, it is so fun to watch like the new, I just want to encourage you to be a part of like the new launch. There's so much excitement and like innovation, and the chatting that is happening with all my members is so fun. If you are looking to self-publish a book, get on in at founding member rates because then you get them, you keep them, like you get to have them. So just like get in there at founding member rates and then don't think about it again. Like just like literally like set it and forget it. And let this be, if this is where you feel called, let this be the year you figure out the how. Is there anything else, Kate, that you want to say that you haven't said today on this podcast?
You summed it up very beautifully there, Lisa. I think the one thing maybe that I haven't touched on is just that the goal of the Academy is, and what I would love to see come out of this Academy is an abundance of good, true, and beautiful books. And if you want to be a part of that and learn how to do it all through the lens of the Catholic faith, that is what the Academy is there for.
Okay. Why is it important that we have an abundance of true, good, and beautiful books?
Mm-hmm. There's all those three areas, and I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to dive deep into all of them. But there are so many books, that come onto the market, and they might just be missing one of those elements. And when all three of them are working in harmony, that is when that book just really has the capability of reaching more people, being really successful, touching the hearts of people who need to read that book. And so in the Academy, we're going to talk about, what makes a good book, what makes a true book, what makes a beautiful book. And so getting those three things to work together, I think, is where, authors are really going to excel.
Kate, where can people go to learn more about you and your brand new academy?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Thy Olive Tree. You're going to put the link to the Fiat Self-Publishing Academy in the show notes. So that's a great place to go. And then my other site where I actually sell my books and you can view books that other Catholic authors have published is thyolivetree.com. That's where you can go to shop for books if you're interested.
Thank you, Kate, so much for spending some time with me today.
Thank you, Lisa. This has been great.